New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello and welcome back to Global Focus today. I am Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, your host, and our guest today is someone that took me 2 whole years to get on here, but you're going to love hearing him. The guest today is different, there's a big surprise, from everybody who's been on here so far. Our guest today is Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski, who is the leader, the head, the big kahuna of New Thought Media Network. And we're going to talk about how New Thought Media happened and what New Thought Media does. So please help me to, wait, I got to tell you my 3 things people don't know about him. I love this. I used to do biographies, and then somebody said to me, you might try this, and I love it. So here are 3 things most folks don't know about Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski. He spent a few summers following the Grateful Dead. I think that means he was a roadie, but I'm not sure. He cannot stand anything coffee flavored, which we have in common. I love the smell, but I can't stand the taste. But here's my favorite. He's working on a cross-country bike trek on a solar-powered e-bike, which he is assembling himself. And I got to tell you, I need to know how you ride across country with that big old heavy solar panel over your head. I mean, really, please help me welcome Reverend Dr. Robert Brzezinski. Thanks for finally saying yes.
Absolutely, Dr. Sharri. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with you, and excited for our conversation. So I honestly don't know what has taken so long for us to make this happen, and yet here we are, and today is the day, and I'm really looking forward to it, spending some time with you.
Excellent. I am too. And the first thing I want to know is, how do you ride a bike with a solar panel hanging over your head? I mean, that can't be how it works, but it's all I can see in my head. So tell us about that.
Gotcha. Well,
nothing to do with ministry, but it's important.
Exactly. Well, we can talk about what it does actually have to do with ministry, because part of my intention in all of this is to raise funds for various good causes and organizations as I do ride across the country. And I'll share just a little bit about how all this got started, because a couple years back, I got myself on an e-bike and fell in love, and just fell in love. The only problem I had was not enough range on the battery to go as far as I want to go. And I've got a fairly large cargo style bicycle, so it's kind of heavy, and when you don't have the e-power, it's not really geared to ride, and it's not very much fun to ride when you're trying to push a 70-pound bicycle in that regard. So I started experimenting and watching YouTube University to learn more, and started experimenting on how I can extend the range. And my bike now has 2 batteries. And along the way, I kind of stumbled into this idea and learned more about how you can create a trailer. So it's not gonna, the solar panel won't hang over my head. It'll be on a trailer.
A log behind you. You're going to be pushed by a solar panel. God, I love it.
In some ways, yes. So I rescued an old children's style bicycle trailer, and I'm retrofitting that, and there will be a solar panel on top of that. So the solar panel will be at about the level of where my butt is, where I'm sitting on the bike, just a few feet behind me. And then inside that inside the trailer is where you put a big what's known as a LiPo 4 battery, and you put your converters, and all your electronics go in there, and all the things you're going to need to travel with. The small camp stove, your sleeping pad and sleeping bag, a small tent, all those things. So it'll be much like a solo bike packing trip. I'm just going to harness the power of the energy to charge up the batteries while I'm riding. So when there isn't as much sunlight, I have a reserve battery to help propel me across the country.
And have you, two more questions, and then we'll go on to stuff that's really important, but I'm just nosy. The first one is, do you have a scheduled start date for this trek? And how long do you think it'll take for you to do that cross country?
Great questions. A dear friend of mine rode cross country on a pedal powered bicycle not long ago, just last summer, actually. And it took him about 40 to 50 days, I think it was, if I remember correctly, somewhere in the 40 to 50 day range. And I figure I can probably make it in a little less, because I'll be able to do a bit more mileage per day than he was comfortable with, and mostly because I won't be working anywhere near as hard as he had to work to haul stuff across the country, so I'm thinking somewhere between 30 to 40 days. I do not have an exact start date yet. I don't have a route yet. There are a number of very common or the predominant routes across the country that are already there and already charted, and they're on the maps and all those kinds of things. I might take a little bit longer of a route or a more adventurous route. I'm not 100% sure yet. That's all still a kind of whirling in the mind and making itself be known. So it's going to be whichever summer I do it in, probably it might be summer of 2026. It might not happen until the summer of 2027, but whenever it does happen, it's going to be a whole lot of fun, and we're going to take everybody along, because
I was going to say, you're going to have a crew that comes with you to document and do the shows that you do from on the road and all that.
Exactly.
Too cool. Okay, so now we're going to back up and do this like I'm supposed to do, where I start by saying, okay, tell us the I call it the nativity story. How did you get into New Thought? Were you one of the lucky ones who was born in New Thought, or did you, like the rest of us, stumble in by way of some other path?
I stumbled in by way of actually a really amazing path. And when my beloved wife Laura and I were dating, before we had decided to get married, she had mentioned that she really wanted to be able to share a spiritual tradition of some sort. And at that time, for her, that was the Lutheran church. That was the church of her upbringing. And at that time, for me, God really did stand for the great outdoors. G-O-D, the great outdoors. And I felt there was no better way to get closer to God than standing at the top of a mountain somewhere. And many of my weekends, and especially my Sundays, were filled with getting out into nature, being out in the wilderness, whether it was in a canyon in the desert or, again, at the top of a mountain. I just love being outside. And I was really falling for this girl. So I was kind of like, all right, I'll go with you for a while. We'll check some things out. And we searched and we spent the better part of a summer looking at various spiritual traditions and faith traditions in different churches. And none of them really struck with me. None of them moved me. I oftentimes came out thinking, I just got 45 minutes of being told how much of a sinner I was for 15 minutes of salvation at the end. And well, if that's the way it works, then I can have a good time during my life. I'll just ask for forgiveness in the last few minutes and it'll be given, right? And so nothing really stuck. And one day Laura had she had a day where she had a coaching session with her personal coach in the morning, and then had a catering gig that evening where she would be out running her business until kind of late in the evening. It was a Friday. I had a day of work. And so I left before her coach got there. And when I got home in the afternoon, there was this big white and red book on the table that said The Science of Mind. Being a Friday night, and knowing she wouldn't be home until well after midnight, I had the choice between the television and this mysterious book. I had no idea where it came from. And so I picked up the book and reread those first 4 chapters maybe a few times by the time she got home. And it was a lot of turning back the page, going, wait a minute, it didn't. Oh, okay. And even in those first 4 chapters, just back and forth. And it was all kind of clicking in my mind. When she came home, I was pretty much in tears. Like, what is this thing? What is this book? Where did this come from? And she explained that, oh, my coach left it here this morning and said it's a church and we might be interested in it, because she knew we were searching for something to share. Sure enough, we were interested, and fell into the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living in the late summer, early fall of 2001, and really have never looked back. And it has changed the course of both of our lives. It has made our marriage, and even in the rough times of our marriage, it has been the philosophy that has kept us together and allowed us to grow together and become something I don't think either of us ever imagined we would be doing or living the life that we now get to live.
Gosh, I love asking that question because the answers are so cool. Okay, good. That's a start. Now, the next thing is, how did you get from somebody who stands on the tops of mountains and cries at Ernest Holmes, which I do too, to somebody who has Rev Durr in front of his name and runs a New Thought Media Network? There are some steps missing. Take us on the journey.
Well, let's see. How much time do we have?
We have as long as you need.
It's a rather long story, to be honest. And I think that for me, it started like so many other people. I became interested. There was something here that said, hey, there's something real here, something that you can use to make your life the life you've been desiring, and to live the dreams that you've been having, and to create what it is you've always known is within you. And so I started taking classes. And I do remember one very specific Sunday morning. I was sitting at church, and a dear friend now, Reverend C.C. Coltrane, Reverend Dr. C.C. Coltrane, was on stage as the morning practitioner. And she was offering the reading and a prayer for that Sunday service. And I heard the voice. It was one of those times where I heard the voice loud and clear, and it said, "You're going to do that." And of course, that was the voice of God. I continued my training and did become a practitioner. And during that process, I felt I heard the call to ministry, and everywhere I went, everyone I talked to, there was sort of a similar message that was, don't do that unless it's the only thing you can do. If there's anything else you can do in the world than go down the road of ministry, do that. It's much easier to do anything other than this. And something, again, let's call it God, kept pulling me back to going deeper with the education, learning a little bit more, wanting to serve and support people, finding unique ways. And way back, even before I entered ministerial school, I was looking for new and innovative ways to share this philosophy, because it had already been changing my life, and it had already made my marriage possible, and it was already bringing children into my life. And so I just kept taking one step after another. Eventually, the obvious choice was to move my family to Colorado in order to attend ministerial school at Mile High Church. Felt it with two young children, I felt it would be much easier to be 10 minutes away from home when class ended rather than several hours in a car or a handful of hours on a plane. And so we moved to Colorado, started attending Mile High Church religiously, and found my way on that path of ministry. From there, things kind of get a little strange. And at one time in my journey, I would call these the missteps. After following ministerial school, I launched a community in the Boulder Valley area of Colorado. That was in response to other factors and for a whole number of reasons, which we're not going to go into today. That community did not endure. Found myself looking for another place to minister, to do this work, to prove that I knew what I was talking about, that I was worthy of this title of reverend. And that led us to Olympia, Washington. I love how in New Thought circles, when you make a mistake, we just say, well, it wasn't a fit. I'm going to be straight up. It was a mistake. There were plenty of red flags and interestingly enough, I just got to spend some time with one of the members of that community who we first met at that time. And the sharing and the experience has been deep. And I know now that there were so many lessons I received in that experience.
I got to tell you, it wasn't a mistake.
Yes.
And here's why. My father didn't say very many smart things in his life, but this was one of the ones that really made sense to me. He said, it's not a mistake unless it's stupid. And the only stupid mistake is one when you didn't learn anything.
Yes, exactly.
And you learned so much.
Yes. And during that time, I think the most important lesson I received is that while there is a deep calling and I have the skills and the talents for ministry, I was being called to a different form of ministry. And the typical pulpit-based minister of speaking on Sundays in a Wednesday night meditation service and teaching classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays and doing weddings in between really was not my calling. There's nothing wrong with that form of ministry, and that form of ministry does great work for countless numbers of people. And I was being drawn to something new and different. However, I had to go through an even, recently it's been presented to me that even using the term dark night of the soul has its loaded connotations, equating the hard pieces of our lives with darkness, with the absence of light. There was no absence of light. I was just closing my eyes and went through a mild undiagnosed depression in not feeling worthy and really in many ways looking, how do I go back and make some real money and not do this ministry thing? And that lasted for a little while. However, the great awakening of 2020 was soon upon us. And starting in March of 2020, while everything else in our lives were shutting down, we opened New Thought Media Network. And
now, that's too fuzzy a transition. I want to know when it was that the voice said to you, okay, now here's what I really want you to do. Here's what you really were created for. What did that look like and sound like and feel like? That's where focus ministry comes from. Focus ministry, you said it yourself. Focus ministry is what you do because you can't do anything else. It doesn't mean you're not capable of doing anything else, but it means you cannot do anything else. And that's definitely what New Thought Media is. So tell us that.
Yes, absolutely. I like to back up on that one and look at it in light of what came just before the pandemic, actually. So as I said, I was going through my own soul-based journey of becoming, and was driving rideshare, running rideshare for money, and was really disillusioned in my own lack of commitment, really. And one night, late at night, sitting in front of my computer, I realized part of my concern, part of my depression, part of my problem, if you will, was that I was driving around all day listening to commercial radio, and I needed something more positive in my car and in my life. And out of a whim, I started searching for internet radio on the internet, and came across a company that I was aware of years earlier and had been resurrected. That company's called Live 365, and they provide opportunities and resources to launch an internet radio station. And so late one night, I launched an internet radio station, and I began loading up my vast collection of New Thought music, from Karen Drucker to Daniel Maymont and Gary Lynn Floyd, Jamie Lula, Faith Rivera, you name it. We probably got something by them on our station, and if not, we'll put it there. And called it New Thought Radio and let that be. And it was more of a hobby, I would say. But when I look at it in retrospect, the seeds of not only this station, but what New Thought Media Network is now, were there in my visionings and in my spiritual work, going way back into even before I got into ministerial school. The seeds of what we're doing now were planted 10, 15, 20 years ago now. So as I continue to limp along, I guess, in my ministry, and had my little radio station, and was making that happen, in January of 2020, I had a phone call with my original teacher, and I was a little whiny. I was kind of being a little, I was just being, and I was crying and whining about how it wasn't fair, and I had all these talents, and I'm just sitting in a car for 12 hours a day and dealing with all these people that could care less about any of these things, and the loving, compassionate soul that he is, said, I want you on a 30-day vision quest.
Thank you. I knew you were going to get to visioning sooner or later.
Yep, exactly. And he said, I want you on a 30-day vision quest. I want you every day for the next 30 days to use the visioning process. And I want you to send me a picture of your visioning notes every day. And if you don't, I'm not going to take your phone calls anymore. Wow, that felt a little rough, but okay. And deep inside, I knew he was right. And so through about the middle of January through late February, I did a 30-plus day visioning process where every day I found time, and I snuck time, and I just forced myself to use the process that not only do I teach as the primary spiritual process now, but back then even I knew it was my primary process, my primary practice. And in those 30 days, not just the seeds, but I caught a vision of what the flowers are going to look like. And some of those flowers we're experiencing and witnessing now in this ministry. Some of those flowers have yet to sprout. Some of those flowers have yet to bloom. There are flowers in every stage of development across this ministry at this point. The conversations that I'm having with people, the places where I've been asked to serve in a greater way, in leadership within the International New Thought Alliance, within the affiliated New Thought Network. Places where I've been asked to step up and utilize and demonstrate these principles in a greater way, and the growing edge places that not always talking about, the bike ride across country, other projects that aren't yet made ready to be public, but are in the works. I find when I get myself out of the way and follow the vision, miracles happen.
Okay, now that's 3 times, so I have to stop you. I know about visioning because I know you. And all of the people who work with you know about visioning because they know you. But it's entirely possible there could be people watching this program who don't know what the visioning process is. So could you kind of condense it down and at least give them an outline?
Absolutely, yes. Recently, over the last 6 months or so, I've actually started to use a slightly different term for the visioning process. Now, at its basis, visioning is a meditative inquiry. Within our meditation, we inquire. We ask questions. We ask a very specific set of questions. And in a good visioning process, we ask the same questions again and again and again and again and again. Hence the 30-day challenge that my mentor put me on. 30 days of asking the same series of questions reveals those things that kind of pop up and those revelations we have that continue, that are ever present, that keep reminding us of our greatness, of our calling. And sometimes we get those things that seem a little on the fringes and just sort of aren't enduring, don't show up. So at its basics, we're asking the divine source, what is the highest vision for my life? What do I need to hold on to? What do I need to let go of? What is it I need to be doing? What information do I need to continue moving forward and fulfill this grand vision for my life, for my ministry, for the businesses that I may perhaps run, for any aspect of our lives? We can tap into that greater universal wisdom, that greater universal revealing, the vision. When I think of it as a meditative inquiry, it feels more approachable to me. And in today's world, I think most people understand what meditation is. And I think most people understand how we can ask questions. Now we add the specifics of the questions, the specificity of the questions, and we record our experience. We write down in a book, handwritten, what we experience for each question. When I look, I have a book here. I can look back and look at, well, on, let's say, February 13th of this year, I can look and see what I experienced as the highest vision for my life, as the highest vision for this network, as what my soul's purpose is. And so over time, we create a record of really our own evolution, our own progress, and our own growth. And we can see where things come and go in our consciousness, and we can identify those things where it is most beneficial for us to put our efforts.
Now, I have to tell you, I just love the term meditative inquiry.
Oh, good.
Because that takes it from visioning, something everybody does that's a sort of a formal process, a tool, to something that's personal and active. Yes. So I love that. That is so wonderful. But what I really love is that you just asked yourself one of the 5 questions that I ask every guest. And I'm going to ask them out of order so that I can ask you the one you just asked, which is, how does what you do, how you do it, how does your ministry and you as a minister, how does all of that encourage, enhance, develop, promote, pick your own verb, conscious evolution?
Yes. Sharri, I do want you to know, I do watch your show, by the way. So I do know a little bit about which questions are coming. And I love the answers that you get to this as well. Because we're always evolving. No matter who, no matter where, whether we realize it or not, we are evolutionary beings. We're evolving beings. Now, sometimes we hide from what is revealed to us, and sometimes we embrace or dive into what is revealed to us. And for me, consciously evolving means that I am always focused on the activity of my work, of my prayer, of my spiritual practice, of my visioning, of my meditation and my inquiry. So for me, this whole thing is always promoting that for others by simply saying there is an invitation here. If you would like to know yourself better, if you would like to know the greatness that you are and what you are here to bring to the world, if you would like to catch a glimpse of the magnificence that is awaiting your acceptance of it, this practice gets us there. And I believe that as more and more and more people are becoming conscious, active, participating in their own evolution, that's how we create a world that works for all. That's how we raise up the consciousness of this planet. We don't have to argue or fight against the dying consciousness, the consciousness that is receding in our human culture. We just got to keep striving to participate, to engage with the vision that is pulling us forward. And that, to me, is conscious evolution.
I'll take an order of that. Okay, now I'm going to ask you the question that was supposed to come before that one, which is there anything that you want our viewers to hear, to know about you or about what you're doing that I haven't asked you about?
Oh, wow. I'm going to come back to the visioning process. When visioning was taught to me, there were 5 questions. What's the highest vision? What am I becoming? What wants to be released? What wants to be embraced? And what else? Or what other information? Along the way, I've expanded that in my own practice. And the questions that I've added are not just, oh, let's see how this does. There are questions that I have used myself and I have used with private coaching clients for years now to dig deeper into a more expansive, let's say, vision of who I am, who I've come here to be, the gifts I'm here to share, however we want to say that. And one of the questions that has come through, and I feel that the majority of the people on the planet would love to have a definitive answer to this question. What is my soul's purpose? Yeah. And so in most of my visioning now, and in almost all of my private clients, we now have added that question into the process. What is my soul's vision? And it was about, maybe it's even longer now. Maybe it was definitely after we've started the network that a phrase started coming through in my visioning. And at first it wasn't every time it would pop up. It's come to the point where when I ask that question without hesitation, even before I ask it in some occasions, I hear the phrase love and be loved. It's something that just doesn't go away. And even if when I let my monkey mind into the game and my monkey mind says, oh, let's see if we can get through this without love and be loved. Let's see where, it's there.
Who would want to?
Exactly. And as I started to recognize that this phrase is popping up in different places at first, and then solidly within my soul's purpose. So every time I think about it, what is my soul's purpose here in this experience, in this event, in this conversation? What comes through is to love and be love. Let yourself, love what's happening, love the person you're in front of, regardless of it, of the appearances or the words or what's going on. If you can come from love first, then you will be loved. And if you put be and loved close enough together, it becomes beloved. So love and be love, my beloved. It's become the driver. It's become the reminder. And what I fully believe is, as I consciously focus on that, here again, the miracles happen. The vision reveals itself. New and interesting people come into my life. New and amazing opportunities show up in my world. And all of it is moving the ministry forward. All of it serves to move the revelation, the sharing, the expansion of this message that is the New Thought philosophy into the hearts and the minds of others around the planet.
Okay, now here's the third question. It sounds a whole lot like the one I asked you first, but it's not the same question. How does what you do and how you do it, how does your ministry and who you are and how you be, how does all of that promote, encourage, unveil, release, whatever verb you want to use, world peace?
Yes. Somewhere along the line, I was introduced to the book by Sharif Abdullah, A World That Works for All. And those that listen to me, follow this network, you hear that phrase a lot. That phrase has been adopted by other organizations, and it's been shifted a little by other organizations, and it's all, but to me, it all comes back to that. Now, in order to truly create, in order to truly live in a world that works for all, I believe everyone need to have this information, this understanding of our oneness, of our deep, deep unity in the world. And for me, every single thing that I do, or that I will say yes to, or that I partner in, or that I promote, has to in some way be promoting for helping us to understand that we really are all in this together. That deeply, and that is one of my favorite phrases, and it's, we make t-shirts and stickers,
we are one.
Hats about it. Exactly. Deeply, we are one. And it doesn't mean there won't be conflict. Conflict is good. It doesn't mean that there won't be disagreements. Disagreements can be good. But it will be that no matter what side or perspective I may hold in a disagreement or a debate or a conversation, I come from that deep sense of respect that you and I are one, are part of the oneness that is revealing itself, and that we are coming to understand is there's no way to get to a world that works for all if we're not all working towards it. So the work we do for New Thought Media Network, the work I do as a visionary, as a mystic, as a teacher, as a promoter, as a guide, whatever we want to call it, all of that is promoting world peace, because every time somebody comes to an understanding of oneness, well, what we also happen to immediately recognize is it is through that understanding that we can come to know peace in ourselves. That peace then ripples out into the organizations and the communities we serve. And that is how we change the world.
Okay, last question. No, next to the last question. This question is the one that most guests enjoy the most. So you got to close your eyes because you're going to use your imagination. So we are presuming that everything, every detail, every event, every relationship, every occurrence, every object, every encounter goes exactly the way you want it to go. 10 years from now, what does Robert Brzezinski, Reverend Dr. Head of New Thought Media Network, look like?
Well, I can start with the fact that my hair won't be so gray. And my wrinkles might be a little deeper out of the wisdom of the experience. And this is a great question. As my beloved and I spent 9 hours in the car yesterday, we did a lot of these types of back and forth on some projects and the big picture for our marriage and our ministry and our lives in general. And if I can point to the vision, the vision includes New Thought Media Network having its own intentional community. But it does not include me sitting on a throne at the front of the room telling everybody else what it is they need to know in order to be a part of this intentional community. For me, as the human aspect, I see a world where world travel is part of the norm. And since beginning this network in the last 4 years, I've come to realize that part of a bigger vision for me is to support the uprising of the New Thought philosophy, no matter where or no matter what it looks like, no matter where on the planet it might happen, no matter what form it may take. And over the past few years, New Thought Media Network, we have been to Switzerland and we have seen how New Thought uprises there. We have been to Kenya and we see how New Thought is growing and rising and there, and have just returned from the Convention of the Americas, where we get to see what 10 years of intentional community building in the Spanish language countries and in the Spanish language, what that has accomplished. And we're supporting that uprising of New Thought in, again, whatever form it may take and wherever it may take on the planet. So 10 years out, I'm a full believer. I'm never going to retire. And I'm probably not ever going to slow down. So 10 years out, if what we've accomplished in the last 4 is the early stages, and over the next 2 years, I would expect an ever increasing exponential growth, you're going to see a media network that stands shoulder to shoulder with the big guy, with the quote mainstream media. You're gonna see a New Thought think tank that is influencing the policy decisions made by politicians across this land. You're going to see global outreach. You're going to see more, just a greater and a greater expanding vision for how we share New Thought and how we support those that are practicing this philosophy, because again, that's how we create a world that works for all.
I love it. And you know what the last question is, but I'm still going to ask it. Will you come back?
Absolutely. But I do have a condition.
All right. What's the condition?
Because I knew you were going to ask this question. And I know you're booked out probably another year and a half before I
No, only till July 15th of next year.
Okay, so not quite a year. I'll take July 15th of next year. But you've got to promise to come on my show on Tuesdays, New Thought Today. And we don't do anywhere near as good a job as you do as scheduling people in advance. So I got all kinds of dates this fall. And
cool.
You got to promise. We'll talk afterwards and figure out which dates. But you got to promise to come on my show.
You got it. I would love to. I'd love
to have you on that. Have
right.
And then we get to focus all on you.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you these questions.
Well, I have answers. All right. So next week, our guest is Reverend Doctor. She just became Reverend Doctor Michelle and her maiden name is Davis, and I can't pronounce her. She just got married, and I can't pronounce her new name yet because I haven't heard from her yet how to pronounce it. But she's going to be talking about Sofa Sundays, which is the most unusual Sunday focus ministry, pulpit ministry melange you've ever encountered. It's really cool. And I know you're going to enjoy it. And there's going to be stuff you never heard of before and things that you will learn and enjoy. So don't miss it. We'll see you then. And don't forget, I love you. Bye-bye.
Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing. You will do amazing things.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network, come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time.